This is Irfan Sultani, a 26-year-old protester from Iran. His family says he could be executed. Iran has been facing widespread protests,
that more than 2,000 people
and the
have been
government
killed so
response has
far
drawn
during the
international
violent
concern.
crackdown by Iran. President Trump has urged Iranians to keep demonstrating. In response, Iran's ambassador to the UN has accused him of inciting violence. President Trump has been speaking to our partners in the US, CBS News, in an exclusive interview. He was asked about his comments on Iran.
If they hang him, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
And this strong action you're talking about, what's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi. He was wiped out. Let's define it with Soleimani. And let's define it in Iran, where he wiped out their Iran nuclear threat in a period of about 15 minutes once the B-2s got there. And that was a complete obliteration, as it turns out, which is what I said initially. Then some questioned it, and they said, you know, Trump was right. So we've been right about everything. We don't want to see what's happening in Iran happen. And, you know, if they want to have protests, that's one thing. When they start killing thousands of people, and now you're telling me about hanging, we'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good.
Well, let's now speak to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, who joins us here in London. Lise, what can you tell us about the situation in Iran today?
Well, Catherine, as we've been reporting ever since Thursday, when the government imposed a near total blackout, it's very difficult to get a full picture of what is happening on the streets in Iran now that these protests are in their third week. But grisly images are emerging, messages are emerging through the technical creativity and the courage of Iranians, and even the partial picture which is emerging is absolutely chilling. Doctors telling us that hospitals are overwhelmed, those ghastly videos of open-air morgues where people desperately searching and on a whole pavement strewn with black body bags. And even state TV has shown those images, saying that the dead are dead because of attacks by protesters. They continue to blame their foreign enemies, in other words, Israel and the United States. But human rights groups are collecting the evidence. Individual anecdotes all of them add up to what is undeniably the worst deadly crackdown taken by the Iranian authorities in response to a wave of unrest.
And those concerning reports of people who've been sentenced to death, President Trump has warned the Iranian authorities not to carry out any executions. How likely is it that they will listen to President Trump?
That interview is interesting because President Trump clearly hadn't heard about the case of Mr. Sultani, whose family, as you reported, fear he could be executed today, and he was only arrested last Thursday. But he quickly said, well, we'll take strong action if they do something. Now, after that interview, President Trump headed back to Washington. We understand he went into the White House, where he was presented with, he said, better intelligence. How many people have been killed? How have they died? What has been happening on the streets? Something to give him, we understand, a basis on which to take what could be really, really crucial decision on what happens next in Iran. And there's a whole array of options. It could be kinetic. He could order more military strikes, as he did last year, against Iran's nuclear sites, except this time it could possibly be, I mean, this is only speculation, of course, against assets or bases of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. At the other end of the spectrum is just providing more Starlink satellite terminals from SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk, to the protesters. But what really seems clear, Catherine, you know, after days of questions, will he or will he not? Everything he says, everything we're hearing is that he has decided to do something. Many are urging him to do something, but we hear that Arab Gulf leaders, and they are very closely allied to President Trump. He listens to them. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE are telling him, no, don't call in for a military strike. That is just going to destabilize the entire region.
Lise, thank you. That's our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette there. Well, let's now speak to Avia Sheki from the human rights organisation Hengao. Thank you for joining us on the BBC, and you join us from Luxembourg. Now, you've been following the case of Efran Soltani that we've been reporting on here. What can you tell us about his detention and his condition?
First of all, thank you for having me. We have learned that Efran Soltani was arrested on January 8th, and in the recent days and just 4 days after his arrest, the family was informed that he had received death sentence without explaining his charges. We don't know how was the trial, when was it took place, and how they charged him. There's absolutely no information about his case, and the authorities only has told his family that he was arrested in connection to the current protesters, but there's no evidence to back up this claim by the authorities. So, and his execution was scheduled for today, Wednesday, but till now, because of the internet cut off, we have not been able to reach his family to receive an update. The last update we received was that his family were trying to go to the Qasr Hazar prison. That's where they say that Irfan is being held to at least have their final meeting with Irfan, or to prevent the execution. But we have not been able to receive any information since last night from the family.
Yes, and from your assessment, how many Iranians are facing a similar fate, being sentenced to death after protesting?
We have learned that till now more than 5,000 people have been arrested based on the mass wave of arrest has been carried out in Iran. And all of the people who have been arrested, their lives in danger. We have heard from the General Chief Justice of Iran, Mohsen Ajli, and the leader Ali Khamenei, that they describe the protesters as riots, and they are threatening to charge them with a heavy charge as muharaba, which translates to waging war against God. And in previous situation like that, we have seen people who have received this charge, they were facing death sentence or the heavy prison sentences. Also, it's not just the charge that we are afraid that the people who have been arrested, they be faced also the maltreatment in the prisons, the torture that they might receive, that we saw during the Women Life Freedom movement. Dozens of people died under torture, so the same thing can happen and during the recent arrests also.
And talk to us about how you're getting information out of Iran. Is there any hope that the internet's connection to the country could be improving?
Right now it has been really difficult for us to get any information. We have learned that 2,500 people have been killed, but we were not able to verify all the cases and all the people who have been killed with their names and their personal information. So getting in touch with Iran is really difficult, especially since January 12th. The government has launched operations to collect the satellite that people use to watch TVs and international channels. They are seizing this satellite in several cities in Iran, even in small towns like in Kurdistan, Sardesht and Pirasha, which are really small towns. We have seen the same thing happens in Tehran, Karaj, and other big cities. So we really hope that we will be able to get more information from inside of Iran, but with the current situation, it has been really, really difficult.
Avia Sheki from the human rights organization Hengao, thank you for joining us on BBC News.